through the perihelion transit, they describe all these actions they did. The second time through, though, there was a collision with one of their satellites with Tiamat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what formed half of it formed the Earth, part of it formed Kingu, the moon, which is our moon. And the debris from that formed what they called the hammered bracelet, which is our asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. So it's a very detailed account. And like I said, this was the document that was read in Babylon every spring under the auspices of Marduk, who was their chief deity, right? And in that document, he had renamed Nibiru to Marduk, mm-hmm. and they called it the planet of crossing. Well, so we find out that it's in a retrograde orbit, and that where it crosses either the solar ecliptic or the point at perihelion was what made it famous as this planet of crossing, because apparently it reshines or re-resonates or radiates the radiation from the sun. It's a very large planet. According to the data we're going to get into, it's 4 times larger than Jupiter. Now think about this. It had to be larger than Jupiter in order to cause Jupiter and Neptune and Uranus to end up with these tilts in their orbit.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be a very large planet for that to happen. So now, as you'll see, it looks to be about 17 times bigger than the Earth and about 4 times bigger than Jupiter. So with that said, its magnetic effect, its pull on the Earth would be quite significant were it to come within some close proximity. And so that could explain a lot of the past pole shifts, the change in our magnetic flux that's happening on the Earth now. Mm-hmm. It's been moving significantly. And so something is causing that. So I postulated to you earlier, and I didn't really put this in here, that, we were also told by the Mayans that we'd be going through the galactic center about 2011, 2013, somewhere in there. Okay, some people think it was winter solstice 2012, and Ian Lungold said no, it was October 2011. So if that was the case, it could explain adjacent planets warming up. It could potentially explain the gravitational North Pole changing, and a lot of the other Earth changes we're seeing. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if my hypothesis was true in the first place, that the great year, this passage through the galactic center, could be the disturbance force that caused Nibiru's constellation to get caught up in our solar system in the first place. Well, if that is the case, then those two events would be correlated. So this Mayan prediction and Nibiru's return could be correlated because of that reason.
Sure. Yeah. We're talking something like, when we say a planet, it's most likely something like a failed second sun, Gerald. Is it safe to say that? Is that probably the best guess we've got at the moment? It's like a failed second sun, like a red dwarf or brown dwarf that's got satellite planets.
Use whatever term you want. Its effect on light is what's important because of its ability to be observed. And according to Dr. Harrington and Dr. Neugebauer, who was from JPL, and this is in the 1980, early 81 or so, they were discussing the infrared satellite settings that would be needed to detect this planet. And they said something very telling. They said that the planet is so cold that they had to, unless you had an instrument that could be cooled to 20 degrees above, minus 425 degrees Fahrenheit, mm-hmm. that you would not be able to detect it. So you've got to super cool your instrument in order to detect this thing because it's not reflecting light. It's in the infrared. Okay, so is that a failed star? I don't know. It could still have magma inside it, but the surface of the planet is very cold.
Sure. Yeah, I know. Giorgio de Santillano in Hamlet's Mill talks about Neugebauer's data as well. He gets into a lot of the astronomical stuff as well. There is no doubt, though, that the amount of context we have for this Nibiru in historical text, though, Gerald, and I want to focus a little bit on this. This is going to be important. We get into some of the science and the astronomy in a bit. But, I mean, the amount of times we have this Nibiru planet mentioned, either Nibiru or Marduk, the way that you describe it, there is nothing else that can fit this other than a planet, Gerald. I mean, it's not a star, because a star just doesn't do what this thing is supposed to do. Yes, it does reflect a lot of light because of the nature of it, of what it is and how it comes into our solar system. But there's only one thing that fits this, and that's like a planet with a very long oval trajectory. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, you go all the way back to the late 1700s. There were the first people that were using telescopes that were searching for whatever. They hadn't even found Pluto yet, okay? We didn't find Pluto until the 1930s. These guys were focused on what is disturbing the outer planets. A real physical, tangible question. What is so large that disturbed them off of the solar ecliptic? They wanted to know, and it's still a valid question today. Okay, something tangible that had a interactive effect, either collision or a magnetic or gravitational effect, changed the orbit of these very massive planets. Mm-hmm. And that has been a search for the astronomical community for a very long time. And it turns out that Tombaugh, who was working for, who was he? I think he was with the IRAS. I think he was with the IRAS program too. Mm-hmm. Or I can't remember where he's from, but he actually got accredited with finding Pluto in the 1930s, but it was by accident. They were actually looking for what this big object was that could have affected our outer giants, planetary giants.
Sure. Wow, incredible, Gerald. Gerald, I mean, let's get into Sitchin, in 76. He brings in this incredible tablet, this imprint of a cylinder seal, the famous photograph, but it's a photograph of a cylinder seal. It's in the Berlin Museum. It's known as VA243. Not a very illustrious name, Gerald, but
very controversial.
Yeah. VA243, probably the most controversial cylinder seal in existence. You know I love cylinder seals, Gerald, so...
I know. I actually put this in the document because I knew how much you love cylinder seals. And I had some fun. I had a little bit of fun with this one.
But I like your analysis, though, Gerald. I like your analysis. Now, I'm going to again refer the audience to the book or the document, the article that you wrote in the YouTube description. Get a copy of this because it's got all the pictures, tables, data, and the analysis all there. Very, very thorough document, Gerald. But, I'll be honest, I mean, I just looked at this as just a pure picture, and it's only when I see the analysis that you've done, Gerald, with the relative sizes of there's a lot of criticism of this, but the criticism, Gerald, that you have seems to have dispelled here for me. I mean, it's great because it seems like a no-brainer. It's showing relative sizes, Gerald. And it looks like it is actually, Nibiru in the center. I mean, it doesn't look like it's a star, or a sun, or it's a star.
Yeah, well, so I'll give a little background. So this very controversial cylinder seal, and I know how difficult it must have been to etch this thing on stone and roll this thing out. Now that you look at the detail, and anyway. In between two of the beings on the top left, it looks like a primitive worker is being led by the hand and introduced to an Anunnaki deity that's seated with the plow. And I'll have to go and decode the cuneiform that's on there. It's not hard. We have a cuneiform script and a dictionary now, so anybody can do it. And I'll look at see what some of the words say on here. But just looking at it from the historical record, it was interesting to me because, number one, it shows a circle with 7 points around it. Okay, and the Anunnaki oftentimes used a star symbol to represent different planets. Mm-hmm. So a 7-pointed star would refer to the Earth, a 6-pointed to Mars, and from there in Numa Elish that we assign numbers to the planets based on working from the outside in, from Pluto inward, and then theirs ending up as the 12th planet because they were the last ones in. So that's how we ended up calling the Earth the 7th planet. Okay.
Sure.
So anyway, so this cylinder seal that Sitchin was so focused on had in between this primitive worker and this liaison that was going to introduce him to his enslaved role as a farmer working with the plow. Right in between them was this star-looking symbol, a very large circular dot in between, and then several other dots around them that looked like planets around an orbit, okay, around a sun, around a central sun, just like our solar system. And so it turns out that Sitchin was very excited about that because there weren't just 9 planets, there were 10. So he believed that they were talking about an additional planet in our solar system that we hadn't accounted for, even in the 1930s when we found Pluto. Okay? So on the cylinder seal, it became controversial as to using it as a source, whether there was another planet out there or not. Okay? So he wrote about this in the 12th Planet. This controversy, I don't know, kind of came to a head even more so after his death. But basically, what can we take these dots or these circles and this central sun-looking picture to mean? Could it be representational of a chronology in time when the plow was given to mankind? So it's commemorating some ephemeris. If you were to look at those as, well, are these the planets and the zodiacal houses are in at the time? Is this a time marker to commemorate this event? Or is it a indication of where the Earth was at the time when the event, just the Earth itself, because it's got a sun with 7 points on it. Mm-hmm. So that means it's pretty specific to the radiation that's hitting the 7th planet to me. Not that it's the 7th planet. Okay? Because it's shown much larger than the other spheres. So all of a sudden you go, well, why are the circles different sizes? Mm-hmm. And so this kind of led to a lot of questions, and a lot of people have attacked the theory of Nibiru even existing just simply based on this single piece of evidence, which I think is absurd. But some people have done it. Okay. So I decided to, I don't know, take another look at this and see if there's anything else we could glean from what they were saying on this seal. See, is that now there's a historical story that came from some of Sitchin's writings and others that even in the Cain and Abel story from the Sumerians, we had Anunnaki siblings from the Enkiite and Enlilite clan interacting with them. For instance, according to the story, Abel, the son of Adam, there was Cain and Abel. Well, Abel was taught to do farming by Ninurta, which was Enlil's son. The warrior Ninurta was also known as Apollo. Well, the Cain portion, the Cain offspring was taught herdsmanship and cattle management by none other than Marduk. And then you have the biblical story of Cain and Abel, and Cain killing Abel with a stone because he didn't receive the same praise from Enki that Cain did for meat production. Okay, mm-hmm. So it was kind of a very crazy story and a very crazy tie-in with the Anunnaki. So I thought, well, let's look at these orbs on here and see if, knowing that you studied cylinder seals and they are very precise. I mean, just crazy precise. How they could even do this in the first place? So would they have haphazardly drawn these on here? And can it tell us anything? So I started looking into that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I glommed onto someone else's research who had, and this is shown in Figure 3, VA 243, planet numbering. Basically, starting from the smallest circle on that blown-up picture from VA 243 and assigning numbers to it, you'll end up with 1 through 12. Okay.
Sure.
And the smallest one probably being Pluto, since we know it's the smallest planet, and then the largest one being the sun, okay, which turns out to be right in the